Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here and for your testimony and all the work that you do. Dr. Shetty, question for you. There's been discussion about how the United States is losing our competitive edge with China and the United Kingdom when it comes to synthetic biology. And I guess trying to understand the reasons for that and why we're falling behind and what steps we need to take to maintain our competitive advantage in biotechnology.
Yes, thank you for the question. So I think probably the best example of interest in the worldwide interest in this area is the International Genetically Engineered Machines competition. This is an undergraduate competition in synthetic biology where teams from universities design and build genetically engineered machines, organisms. And for the past few years, most years the winner is not from the United States, right? It's coming from Europe, coming from China, coming from overseas. And so I think this is a reflection of what is to come if we don't make domestic investments in this area. And so I think part of the problem or part of what needs to happen in this country is that we need an organized program of investments, right? No one piece is enough because there's a lot of synergy to be had between having the agencies understand and coordinate their research efforts both on the basic R&D side, but also on the translation into industry through SBIR programs. And then finally, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, the U.S. government serving as a customer for biotechnology products as these nascent industries are getting going. And so we need a coordinated multi-pronged strategy, and that coordinated strategy has been pushed forward by the United Kingdom, by China, by other countries in the EU, but so far we have not done the same here in the U.S.
In the competition that you referenced, when did that change occur where the United States hasn't been the winner? Was that recently or 5 years? How long ago?
The competition started in about 2004. I would say by 2005, 2006, there started to be, the winners of the competition started to become schools from outside of the U.S. rather than within the U.S., even though this field largely has its original roots in the United States. I was there. I was part of it.
Gotcha. Dr. Maxon, as a follow-up, my home state of Illinois has a large and diverse bioscience industry with over 78,000 jobs and 3,400 businesses that contribute to the state's economy as it relates to bioscience. I know you were the author of the National Bioeconomy Blueprint in 2012 that outlines steps that federal agencies should take to drive the bioeconomy in the United States. I know we referenced that a little bit earlier, but what's the status of those recommendations in that report?
Thank you for that opportunity to talk about what's happened since the release of that policy document. I think the recent memo on July 2nd from the White House talking about taking a look at the regulatory framework, the coordinated framework, is a direct reflection of one of the 5 strategic objectives of the National Bioeconomy Blueprint. So I would say in that regard, right at the top of the list is taking a look at the coordinated framework. Workforce development was another. You've heard some ideas of how we might be able to jumpstart the system and get a few more chemical processing engineers, that kind of thing. Still needs some work to be done there. Public-private partnerships for biosciences. I think what could be done there, and there are some efforts underway right now, I believe funded by the NSF, to identify pre-competitive research challenges that industry shares that might actually benefit from public-private partnership with both government and company investment. So those are 3 right away. A couple more. Strategic research investments. That was the #1 objective in the National Bioeconomy Blueprint. I think you've heard most of the people, if not all the people on the panel, say the same thing. We could do a better job here. And one of the reasons, to answer your last question, to address your last question about why are we falling behind in synthetic biology specifically, I look at this as another example of technology. Nanotechnology is an example. Emerging technologies. Technology in general sort of falls between the cracks in the federal agencies. And so I think the idea of a coordinated, federally coordinated strategic approach to lift the technology is where I think some opportunity still remains.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I could ask one last question, Dr. Shetty.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Shetty, one of your company's projects funded by DOE ARPA program supports R&D to capture natural gas flared by shale. Can you describe how your company is using that biotechnology to conduct this work, and what have those outcomes been thus far?
Thank you for the question. So there's an interesting transition that's happened in recent years in this country, which is that on a per carbon basis, carbon derived from methane, natural gas, methanol is cheaper than carbon derived from other sources, say sugar. And so there's a growing interest both within our company and others in using these as feedstocks for bioproduction of various chemicals and fuels. And so we have initially had DOE ARPA-E funding in this area to develop some nascent technologies, and we've since partnered that work with a commercial partner and are taking it forward. Now, unfortunately, because it's partnered, I'm under some confidentiality restrictions, and so I'm not able to speak to the details of that program. But suffice it to say, this is an area of interest both for us, ourselves and others, and it's a potential new frontier when it comes to bioproduction of these types of fuels.
Thank you, and I now recognize Mr. Hultgren.
Thank you,